Greetings everyone. My name is Akshay Shetty and I have a neurodiverse mind that, just like anyone else's, is my best friend and my worst enemy, depending on how I of course tend to it. As a child, I struggled to read, write and socialize, and I suppose it was dyslexia. I can't be sure as I was not diagnosed. And later, during my teens, I did develop severe anxiety disorder with depression, which was diagnosed much later in my 20s. In those days, children with dyslexia were assumed to be dumb, lazy, inconsistent, incompetent. Terms like neurodiversity were not even thought of then. Today, autism in India faces worse stigmas and many more challenges than children with any other labels. And trust me, children with invisible syndromes like autism, dyslexia understand what being invisible truly means. The most painful part of it being that while the world thinks that everything is okay, the child continues to search for help and is dueling all alone. This battle within is the reason many children who are not understood or accepted tend to lash out or lose motivation completely, thus quickly isolating and further sinking into a void. This is the reason why I had committed myself to the creation of environments that enable children with neurodiverse minds, which in turn led to the creation of a unique school called Sense Kaleidoscopes in the city of Bangalore, and the mission to create access to extraordinary education for autism, who have been told that they cannot fit because they have a mind that will or shall not allow for it. Now, we run two entities. One is an academic school, which hosts curated learning environments, which offers experiential and sensorial learning journeys to support individual needs by celebrating the strengths that accompany a neurodiverse mind, thus checklisting the skills they need to acquire from grade 1 to 10. We are passionate about enabling environments that will ensure empathy, adaptability, along with creative mindsets. What sets us apart is the fact that we also leverage the perceived weaknesses to initiate sustainable teaching models for an enriched nurturing of this mind. Let me explain what I mean by this. I have a student called Pranav. He's 21 today, but when I started with him, he was just 10 and a half. And at that time, he was dealing with a cognitive delay of almost 5 years. His mother, Anima, who also happens to be my co-founder, told me that many had given up on him and said that he can never grow cognitively. He was reading and writing very simple words and doing numbers with a 10-minute sitting tolerance for any tabletop activity. And he did one amazing thing. Each time he was angry in the school, he would start yelling at me or anyone else in the exact same way that Anima would at her maid. Other times, he would yell at me in gibberish, which I would later realize is how a boy was furious in a manga cartoon that Pranav was hooked to. Words for him were simply like shiny objects that he collected quite effectively, but when he had to deliver them, bearing in mind context and concepts, he was completely lost. Questions did not make sense. His sentences even today are slightly wonky, though very cute. And even now, he keeps throwing complex new words at me, waiting for a reaction because he knows I will help him build a relationship with that complex word. Of course, we could have said that Pranav cannot access education. He was terribly delayed, but we did not. We worked with him and made him our guiding star. And he guided me on how to think, how to teach, in what way to enable. I'm truly grateful to him. It is this academic curriculum that is changing lives today at SK and helping other kids experience a sort of learning that Pranav would have wanted when he was wee. The second is an art school that trains young adults to become professional artists. As an art school that wanted to break the barriers of accessibility in India, which have ensured for ages that people with autism specifically were not given access to an arts education despite their passion for it, because they were either too aggressive, could not function in a group, or did not have the cognitive abilities required to fit into the program. Also, many parents never even consider this as an option because their primary motivation is always to see their children become engineers or doctors. The above two entities have now paved the way for a content brain hub, which is a small but mighty one consisting of neurodiverse minds that are in the process of launching a paradigm shifting curriculum, both in the space of primary education and foundational artistic education, which is a strength-based curricula for and with the autistic community. While I'm talking so much about autism and how it has enabled Sense as a space, I think it is very essential for me to dive into what really happens with autism in India and why this space was the only one I wanted to work with. Autism is a dirty word in India. Many associate the word autism with a person who is low functioning with many behaviors, a disabled mind, a possessed mind, someone that cannot be integrated, someone that is a burden, not needed, not loved. The amount of social stigma generated with this word is immense and worrying. India has a unique way of dealing with autism. First, we hide, which is of course due to the stigma. Then we force them into integration into a regular classroom with the single hope of getting an autistic person to become more like the next neurotypical. Being stigmatized always leads the primary caretaker to make unbalanced decisions that directly affect the development and the prospects of the individual who is dependent on them. Unfortunately, this kind of management strategy has allowed for one thing to happen very successfully in India. People with autism have large cognitive delays, no motivation to communicate or socialize, hence face complete social isolation, which then leads to mental illnesses, poor physiological and psychological health, thus a precious life is wasted. Yes, I must mention at this point that the reason I'm consistently appalled by this is also because I have trained and worked in Scotland, where I was exposed to acceptance, to enabling environments, to empathetic hearts. And while I understand that as a system, Scotland strives to get better by the day, it is a fact that we in India have a lot of catching up to do. But my journey in India has been very disturbing, primarily because despite the 18 million people with autism in India, we do not like to talk about disability, disruptions, disorders, or death. We've always strayed far from grief, and anything that is uncomfortable is replaced with either a stigma, false hopes, or even ignorance. So obviously, there were and still are gaps in the social and cultural framework, in the services like education, mental health, employment, etc. The fact that professionals do not even collaborate has led to further chaos. The framework has disabled the parents from forming strong community models and defining policies that could help their children with autism. I would now like to present two narratives that will unravel the facts I have presented above. Before I start, I would like to introduce Ayush, our teddy bear at SK. He was 16 when he joined us, and today he's 22. According to the reports handed to me by his previous school, he was sitting in class 10, but his cognition was really sitting at the level of a first grader. He communicated with very few words, exhibited echolalia, had many repetitive and aggressive behaviors, exhibited mind-blindedness, along with the difficulty with his fine motor skills. Ayush is someone who would walk into a pool with no clothes if he forgot to bring his swimming trunks. He would not care about social rules. Ayush likes to be stimulated visually, auditorily, and through tactile mechanisms. Many worried when they watched me approaching this 6-foot Hulk who was getting into the red zone. Not many knew that the only way to diffuse that situation was to simply talk calmly and give him a good head and a back rub. The key feature I think all educational systems are failing autism with in India is not literacy, but with basic enabling of executive functioning, emotional well-being and communication, even around simplistic life circumstances and perceptions. I come across so many Ayushs, and it is simply scary that each one of them is struggling even more than the other. And no, Ayush is not incapable due to his autism, which is generally what is assumed. In fact, he is very much capable. Look at this art. Would anyone here think that someone who creates this kind of art is incapable of building skills if nurtured in the right learning environments? Now, you would think, well, he does great art, so that's a positive. I will agree, but hear me out. Ayush worked relentlessly for 6 years and set himself up as a professional Zentangle artist, and everybody loved his work. Then came a change in his life. His sibling was moving away from home to study, and that is when he was at a huge loss because a pattern was breaking and his cognition was not able to make sense of it. We were all watching this wonderful artist experience trauma, and there was nothing we could do to help. We watched helplessly while he slipped into depression. Then came COVID, and that was another huge blow for Ayush, as his artistic practice and life routines were affected and he was stuck at home. All this led to a loss in motivation. The boy who would not leave his artwork halfway and would work through his lunch, which is a huge considering Ayush is such a foodie, was now not wanting to do art at all. Motivation is something that is very hard to inspire from externally. It is the reason I think education is mandatory. Education is meant to build your cognitive understanding so that one can explore the inner self in times of distress and connect with one's inner motivations to keep oneself productive and positive. I believe that as a system, we have taken that away from Ayush. I see a beautiful mind wasted. We still are trying, as giving up is not an option, and we hope that Ayush will one day recover from his traumas and accept the joys that art brought to him. Nevertheless, it is also time that we as a system learned from our mistakes and built better systems to enable those like Ayush. Now let's talk about Rohit. Rohit met me when he was 10 and a half, and today he's 21. Rohit has a natural inclination towards the arts. As a child, he would use drawings to calm down when he was anxious or to tell stories from his life and to recover from traumas and meltdown episodes. He's a verbal, capable of simple reasoning. However, he was not integrated in a classroom because Rohit would attack anyone who was crying, and it did not matter if it was a man, woman or a child. I spent a lot of time learning about Rohit's journey, and one thing became very evident: the pain and the despair that he was walking around with. I want to share this artwork made by Rohit for the Bystander series, in which he has illustrated a true event from his life. So in his desperation to be accepted and make friends, Rohit one day follows a neurotypical child who speaks to him about how the apartment has turned into the chocolate world. So it was okay to eat mud as it was chocolate, drink from the pool as it was blueberry juice, and bite a car as that too was made of chocolate. Of course, Rohit got reprimanded by the security and other folk, while the boy who played the prank laughed at it all. Rohit's lack of understanding of human behaviors blinded him to the idea of someone betraying his trust in such a manner. In this other piece of work, Rohit is made to take off his pants by kids younger than him. Of course, after this, Rohit was scarred and very angry. To help him, we put him through a comprehensive, empathy-driven academic program, along with sessions with multiple counselors and a behavior expert. I taught him that he was different, just like me. And I told him that I am proud of who I am, and I am also proud of who he is. I told him that he has autism and how beautiful this mind is and how difficult it is for the neurotypical mind to accept and understand that sometimes. And of course, we used Rohit's favorite character, Spider-Man, to help Rohit through his dark times. I told him to find his tribe. Oh, I must mention, in India, children are not told that they have autism. There is a belief that if you do not label, then the child could recover and become not autistic. Nothing happened, of course, in 1 month or 1 year with what we were aiming for Rohit, but we kept at it, and in 4 years' time, we had managed to break the cycle. Rohit was beginning to walk away when people cried. Early days, he would run. Then he started to walk calmly whilst looking at the person who was crying, and now sometimes he just puts on his headphones and ignores the crying. He has indeed come a long way. Rohit's love for art only deepened as he dived into the arts curriculum at SK. One day, Rohit came to me and said that he had seen a dream in which he could see the front and the back of a girl. This artwork you're looking at is a representation of that. He wondered how there could be two girls of the same kind, and then I explained to him it was the same girl. It was not two different girls, but just that the same girl was split into two images. That is when I realized that he has a surreal mind, a mind that thinks and feels like Dali. I was simply amazed. It was lovely watching this young man bloom. My most revered educational philosopher, Krishnamurti, has pointed, true education is to learn how to think, not what to think. Rohit's education helped him communicate his ideas and feelings with us. Thus, we became collaborative partners in problem solving. His education helped him understand why he needed to cope as opposed to having a meltdown. So the solution was never to stop his education, but in fact to curate his education. Rohit rediscovered a lot of his life through the classroom interactions, which were focused on building literature concepts that connected to his life experiences, so that he could analyze how to deal with unexpected or unpredictable human behaviors and circumstances, and science concepts that helped him understand how things actually worked and why he must not simply believe what everyone would say to him. His arts training enabled him to earn, which was critical for Rohit, and collect many awards. One of the most prestigious awards was the Not Just Art Award, which he received at the UNESCO headquarters in New Delhi. Rohit has also showcased in the prestigious Kochi Biennale, Outside Art Fair in Paris, and in 2 other galleries in Bangalore city, alongside his buddies Ayush and Pranav. While we have overcome all this together, and today we have a very mature, hopeful youth who expresses his dreams and motivations and boasts about becoming a famous artist one day, Rohit still struggles with complex social and intellectual ideas. I always wonder, could we not have avoided it all by redesigning the educational systems in India? Is it not worth our while? Do our children not deserve this? I think the answer to all these questions is yes. And so that is exactly why we do what we do. So where have these pathways taken us now? Well, when we started, we thought we'd just build a small school that could help autism do art. Then we moved into academics. Then we started to design curriculums, brand and position our artists in national and international shows, build revenue streams for our artists. And now it has become clear that with working adults, an incompatible support system in India, the need to build a community is paramount. We do not talk about inclusion. We want to be drivers of inclusion. And for that, we have a vision of a thriving autism artists collective housed amidst a farming community. This community will house both the academic and the art schools, the autism artists working studios, a merchandise shop with the first disability arts gallery, and a theatre space which will also host a resto cafe so that the outside community can come to us, thus enabling the artist community to showcase the talents of those with autism. We hope that autistic people in this community can live independently or semi-independent lives, make their own life choices, choose to have partners and dreams just like any other. And the most inspiring aspect of this dream is that this process will allow for the creation of strong leaders from the autism community who can be a voice that can work to support the rest of the community. We aim to build an interdependent, neurotypical and autistic community that truly establishes a model for inclusion. I thank you all for your time and thank you so much for listening to our story.